at one point I invested into like a really quiet keyboard and it sounds just like this, which is not as bad. Stacy's was, I think, a little louder, and then Augustus was like a jet plane engine.
Oh man, mine's just a boring black keyboard. Like there's no sound coming out of it, and it's like, there's no push. It's just light.
You can have a mechanical keyboard and it's quiet. Like this is mine.
That's true.
Oh, that's
Oh yeah,
nice.
yours is pretty
yeah.
quiet.
That's nice.
Do you have like dampeners on it?
They're just not loud switches. Yeah, I don't like the loud typing. But to each their own.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
Old man yells at keyboards.
Oh man, do you all see like been following the whole Kate Middleton stuff? Like, just it's weird. No? Okay.
What was this?
Well, the reason I bring it up too, because it's like totally is what our world is going to be like from now on. Is like everyone's going to question every video and every photo. It's like everything is AI generated. Well, so this whole like thing with Kate Middleton, I won't go into the deep dark holes of it. I mean, not that it's that deep. Cole, you'll have to hold me accountable on some of these things too. But basically, like, royal family stuff, I don't really follow that, but this one obviously somehow came across, probably because it's all this like AI and technology coming across. Yeah, so she was going through surgery or something in January, some scheduled surgery, but then like nobody's like heard from her or seen her, and so people were like questioning that and all the skepticism around it. And then on like Mother's Day, she like posted a photo, I think on Instagram or something like that, of her and her family, and there was like some weird edits in it, and so like the internet just loves that, and so they go down rabbit holes on like, that's fake, this is wrong, and like that kid's zipper's off, or like that one hand is messed up. Like they just kind of go through all these like rabbit holes. Then there's a video of her like kind of addressing some of this, like, no, I'm fine, I'm around all this stuff. Now people are like, the video's doctored. That's just AI. That's a shirt she's wearing. That's the same background as some video from like years ago, and like all these things. But I guess to me, this is like really just sums up what like I feel like our lives are going to be like from now on. It's like, especially like, there's elections coming up in the US, and like we're going to see all these things coming up where it's like, but was that real? Did they actually say that? And like, there's going to be two sides of it. Like, you're going to have the people who are like, no, like give Kate Middleton her space, and she dealing with an illness. That's all legitimate. She's real. This is all like just hoaxes that people are making up. Then you have the other side that it's like, nope, there's something going on, conspiracy theories and digging in, and like, this is fake. This is I don't think it was AI generated, the photo or anything. It was legitimately Photoshop, but it's just like all these little things that it's just interesting to me.
Did you just see there's a video some developer posted where with like the facial AI stuff where it can like mimic you talking, doing an interview? Did you see that? Like doing a tech interview, having
That's
AI
creepy.
completely do it.
Yeah.
So he was just sitting there, and then the AI version of him was doing and actually answering the questions as well. I mean, it sounded kind of like robot-ish, but I was like, oh my God, like what?
I mean, well, who's to say this isn't just a bunch of AI people talking right now? Like, you just don't know.
It's so funny because, well, I don't want to shout out the channel, but there is a Twitch channel that literally does this, of Trump and Biden. There's where they have AI generated like talking, and it's just 24/7, and they just say the most like crazy things, and it's literally they have Trump and Biden, and they like somehow make the mouths moves.
Oh man,
it's just a 24/7 channel of AI generated debate between them, but it's all like it's not like real debate, but
still, I mean, it's I think
crazy.
Just like, yeah, the power is there. Like, I know I recorded myself. I spit like, and it was a free thing, but I like gave like 30 seconds of my voice, and then was able to just type things out, and it would spit it out. Like, it was so almost depend on the sentences. some of it was so perfect. Like some of it was like, wow, I can't tell the difference. Then the odd time, like, you know, Stacy, like you said, there's this like robotic feel or things like that can happen. So yeah, but it's just, yeah, it's an interesting world.
What I love about this story is AI is on both sides of it. You have AI generating the story itself, which is this photo looks weird, but then there's all this AI swirl around it in the terms of like memes, them taking her picture and putting it on different images or and mind you, this whole thing is not great because the real news is less exciting. But I think it's so interesting to see how people have adapted technology for entertainment purposes. It's not even just the news anymore; it's the news around the news, and it's the memes and everything we generate, the content we generate around the news that is taking the forefront.
That's a good point. I didn't even touch on all the memes that I've seen around this. So like that's a good point. That's probably how it starts too, is like, what is this all about? And then you have to go down that deep, dark rabbit hole.
Oh, I live for the memes. I don't even pay attention to the real news. I follow yeah, it's great.
Well, I mean, as we dive in, let's give introductions of each of the panelists. Stacy, you want to start it off?
Sure. Stacy London, I'm a principal front-end engineer at Atlassian.
Augustus Yuan, I'm fun employed.
Fun employed, I love it.
Jem Young, engineering manager at Netflix, overly employed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cole. I'm a software engineer at Netflix, and I'm just employed enough.
Nice. And I am running Burgess. I am fun employed right now too. And yeah, I like that, Augustus. All right. Well, yeah. So talking today about like AI and talking about some of the layoffs going on as well as just new tech. I think it's, be fun to talk about these together. Anything else to share in the AI world of things?
Ooh, I have one that I just learned about this last week, and it's a AI chat service that will join your meetings. I believe it's called Read.ai. It will monitor participants to see how engaged they are. It'll monitor your charisma score to see how charismatic you are. And it is everything 1984 in Black Mirror that you don't want about AI in your meetings.
Oh my God, that is terrible. I'm so glad I'm fun employed right now. I probably would not be doing so well.
That's freaking terrifying.
Mind you, it's both terrifying and amazing because the degree in which it's rating each participant on, are you making eye contact? Are you using filler words? It's really like getting at how engaged you are in meetings and how effective you are. And that scares me because as somebody who's spent a long time like building up those skills, they don't come easy.
No, they don't. But okay, on the flip side, Cole, I, love communication. Like I think being better at communication, always trying to get better at that is so good. Like it's just something that you should try and do. And I could see that being helpful if it was like, hey, Ryan, you said this many filler words, or, I've noticed that you're improving on how you just say less words to communicate your idea. That would be helpful. Like, I actually would be okay with that. It's still creepy, but I would be okay with that. But it's more the like, oh, I'm the owner of the meeting and like you all are in the meeting and it's like, oh, Cole was clearly not paying attention. He was just on Slack and doing this. I mean, humans can tell, like it's obvious when someone's not paying attention, but the fact of just having like a report on that from AI seems a little bit much.
Right. It's last thing I'll just say is it's a whole report. It tells you a deep dive into even some of the highlights that people said, which can be good, but there are some of the negative things that you said, Ryan. It's like you're being monitored, you're being surveilled, and what kind of biases is AI introducing? What makes me any more charismatic than Stacy or Jem?
What does?
Spoiler,
Well,
I'm not.
Yeah.
Many charismatic, Cole. I think so. It's like a tricky area on something like that where there is some value to that, like having deeper analysis on things. Something I've thought about as a manager and I've gone back and forth on is most of my day is meetings. Actually, all of my day is meetings. A lot of it are one-on-ones. It'd be awesome if I can just summarize that one-on-one instead of me taking notes, and then I can have that transcript spit out and say, like, here's the conversation, here's action items, things to look into, etc. But I don't, because I think it's privacy breaking. Obviously, even if I ask permission, it's just like a weird state for humans to be in, where it's just not as natural if you're being recorded. So I choose not to go that route. But that's a tool that's freely that you can use right now, and just plug it in. And people are like, oh, but productivity, I don't know. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not ready to get that level of interaction with people.
Yeah, I think, like, to your point, Jem, especially on the management side of things, I think people are gonna not be as vulnerable too. Like, it's harder to build trust, and like with your manager, it's hard to build that trust when you're like, I'm being recorded. Like, it always just feels weird that you're being recorded, and it's a little bit harder. I think it's even harder over video to like build trust, like on one-on-ones, if you have like someone new to the team. And it's possible, don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that everyone needs to be in the office or anything like that, but it's harder to do. And so now you're putting another layer in there that it's like, yeah, that feels, yeah, that's not something I'd want to do either in my one-on-ones.
I think like the really creepy thing that you mentioned, Cole, to me was like the charismatic score,
Yeah.
and like how far, like, it's like transcripts. It's like, okay, I can kind of see that. It's like you taking notes, and that's like, maybe you can set some privacy settings, like, oh, it's only like for meetings you create. And, I think Google Hangouts has this thing where when you record a meeting, it tells everyone, hey, this is being recorded. There's like privacy things you can do. But then like charismatic scores, I don't know, just like takes it another step that's a little creepy, where it's like reading my facial expressions. And now I feel like if I found out my manager was getting charismatic scores, I have to be like this all the time, or like I have to start reading guides of how to structure my face in meetings to not get a low charismatic score. That's just creepy as hell.
Right? It's almost like that episode of Black Mirror called Nosedive, where there's a social credit system. And, we're talking about meetings at this point, but I feel like with the technology becoming more proliferated, we're only going to be more susceptible to being recorded. This technology is only going to be more baked into our operating systems, into our features. And so we're not going to know it's happening. And so for me, my biggest fears are the bias components, is like you said, Augustus, how am I being scored on charisma? But then also factoring in, where are these tools available and to who? It really kind of, if you have AI, you can do a lot.
I mean, they're so widely available too, right? Like, it's like there's a tool popping up probably as they're speaking, right? Like, there's just so many, and it's becoming so powerful, like with Google launching Microsoft launching theirs, obviously ChatGPT, like it's constantly growing. Like what OpenAI did with video blew my mind. Like that was like wild. I forget what the software is called that they're calling it. It starts with an S. I just can't even remember what it's called. But it's like, it was just
Sora?
so impressive. What's it called?
Sora?
Yeah, like where they had the woman walking through like Tokyo and like in the night and everything. It was just like, it was like cinematic. Like, it was beautiful. Like, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So then it even just argues like, wait, like when you're creating movies and TV shows and everything like that, it's like, do you need real humans? Do you need anybody anymore? Just someone types in some prompts and there's your movie. I mean, I know there's a lot more to it, so I think that's still fine. But if this AI keeps improving, that's going to be tough.
That's a good point. That was a big point of contention in the actors strike, particularly around extras. From what I know, in the public news sphere, that actors were worried about being replaced by AI, and you might sell your likeness away, and then movies can go and create however many movies with you as an extra. And it's true that AI and automation will take away some people's jobs, but I am also excited that it's also helping a lot of people too. When you think about like engineering and design using tools like Photoshop and what Adobe's doing to make AI with design. I'm excited by, unfortunately, some jobs will go away, but the ones that are sticking around will be more powerful with the tools of AI.
Have you all tried to see how much you can push AI to give you code that actually works and is good? Because that like it's not good right now. Like, I spent a whole afternoon with ChatGPT just out of curiosity trying to get it to solve a problem, and it could not give me code that worked for like hours and hours and hours. And I reframed the question many different ways. Like, the code just was not, it didn't work at all. So that was fascinating to me, because I was like, there's a lot of hype about like, oh, we're going to replace programmers, with this stuff so quickly. And I'm like, how quickly? Like, that stuff, it didn't seem as good as it's been hyped, right?
No, I think I've used it I haven't used it a ton, but I've used it a few times just similar to you, out of curiosity, Stacy. I didn't get stuff that just completely didn't work. Like, there was things that I would have to adjust. Like, I remember creating just a small React component. I forget what it was, maybe like search or something, that I was just like, oh, let's see how this works. And I was pretty impressed how well it actually worked. It wasn't perfect. I think, like you said, I wanted to make some adjustments and things like that, or I was like, ooh, that's a funny way of doing that. But for the most part, I was actually quite impressed how much it did. But to the point of it taking over like engineering jobs, I don't see that happening. I really don't. I think about it as more absolutely kind of what Cole said, a positive. It's like a tool that's enabling us to be able to do things. Is it will just take away some of the things that we don't, maybe they're just like a little more simple. You're like, oh yeah, we've all built like, a checklist, or we've built that to-do list type thing. Like, we've done it 1,000 times, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel on that. Like, let's just be able to quickly leverage that. I think we've always done that as engineers. Like, there's pieces that we just reuse, components, things like that. I see it like that. It's going to continue to get more and more powerful, but there are things that we're doing as engineers that just don't exist. Right? Like, there's so many things that just don't exist, and it's hard to just completely have AI do that. I think that there's still that world where it's like, yeah, there's all the trade-offs that we make as engineers that, like, yeah, you can try and get AI to do that, and I'm sure there's pieces that will get done by AI, but I still think there's someone behind the keyboard making sure that it works appropriately, thinking through those edge cases, and just really thinking through it more strategically than AI can. I don't know. Does anyone disagree with me on that?
Mm-mm.
No.
I'm in full agreement with that. I actually was kind of thinking about this, like, oh, like, how close is AI to replacing me and my old job? And I was kind of just thinking about like the biggest tasks I have to do as an engineer. And honestly, like, I started realizing a lot of my job is navigating requirements. That's really hard for, I think, an AI to do. Like, working with a product manager, and you can spec out the most beautiful, gorgeous spec, but then, oh, wait, there's a deadline. Let's cut scope. And that's not something an AI can figure out. That's something you have to work closely with your product manager. Maybe there's reasons why it needs to hit a certain date, what things are absolutely needed, what things aren't. I have a huge problem seeing how AI can really replace all of that. Like me, but I do see like AI being foundational in like setting up stuff, like optimizing productivity, but completely replacing is just like, I feel like that's just absurd in all honesty. Like,
maybe we're being too naive, Augustus, and they'll just replace us completely.
I think it'll augment. Like, I think what will happen is AI will create like a higher level of programming so that you don't need to know JavaScript, HTML, or CSS. In the way that you can know React and not know JavaScript, I feel like AI, Copilot, and all these programming tools are going to have us start to invent simpler languages or decrease the barrier. And what I mean by that is like thinking about creating a web application. You don't have to know here's all these technologies I need to gather to make a web app. You can just say, hey, AI, make me a front end web app with whatever technology is supposed to be used today, and it'll just do it. But then talking about like specific ways that we can leverage AI, in my day-to-day job at Netflix, I find myself reaching for AI for code just in limited use cases to like suggest templates, but mostly to write like documentation or to summarize meetings or even generate incident reports because it's pretty handy at that too.
Oh, that's really cool. How do you do that, Cole?
Well, the good thing is, as the language models evolve, they start to pick up these kind of ways of information architecture, ways of structuring information. So, incident reports might not be well trained on OpenAI, but in our internal training, we're able to feed it incident reports and use those to generate new incident reports on existing Slack threads. Now, the future for me, what my pie in the sky, what I would love from AI is I'd love to plug in the entire system into AI and just say, hey, last week we were seeing requests were working, and this week it's not. Can you tell me what's wrong with the system? And in the future, AI just knows.
Yes, I don't want AI to make art or do the things that bring humans the most joy. I want AI to do the things that bring us the least joy, which is there is some subsystem 12 connections away had a blip, but you can't figure it out because you have to ask 12 different teams if something happened. I want it to like solve that problem. Like nobody loves doing that, and like machines are perfectly built to find anomalies in data, anomalies in big data. Like let AI do that. I was on call recently and there was an incident and I was like, why is AI not? I want AI to do this. Like this is not. They're better. It's better. Machines are better at this.
I'm with you, Stacy.
So Stacy, how do you feel about like art then? Like, maybe it's just like images created where it is entirely AI generated. And like some people I would say are what I appreciate maybe when I see it is it's like that's what they're doing. They're like, I'm creating things from AI and they're almost like calling that out. What worries me is when people are just creating it and calling it their own. Like I think that's a barrier, but then also how was that model trained, right? Like whose artwork was trained to create someone else's? I know that's something that's bothered me, but I'm curious your thoughts as well.
It's complicated. I think for art, I mean, the reason people like doing it is because it is expression and creating something from your feelings or your experiences. So like it's the act of doing it that's the beautiful part and for a lot of people. So having a computer do it for you takes away the part that makes art fun is like actually doing it. So I don't know that some people might like that and like to get something put together really quickly, but does it satisfy your creative urges? Because you're not really doing it anymore. It's the computer doing it.
I mean, if you're typing on a mechanical keyboard, you might enjoy that. I don't know. Like,
way to call him out.
Don't worry, I have AI telling me who's paying attention and who's not. It's okay.
Charisma score 0.
Whoops.
Oh man.
I guess I have a different take. You know me. I'm very cynical on technology because I know how it's built. I know the incentives of the people that are building it, and they're not usually aligned with the best of humanity, the best for the customer. But whatever. I'd say that's a different episode. But that's all fun and happy hour, like the whole history. But the other week, I had an inspiration to build something. Which is pretty rare these days because management will beat you down and then I'll beat you down some more until it sucks all the creativity from you. Actually, I too. Don't worry, this isn't a rant on engineering management. That's a different episode. One was I was actually talking to Ryan and I was like, man, you know what I miss about software engineering is being creative. And that's probably the most thing I miss. Not necessarily coding, But as a manager, I miss being creative and like having a chance to use that other side of my brain versus the organizational, very logical, this, and this type side of the brain. But the other night, it was late. I got home. I worked a very, very long shift. I was like, but I'm inspired because I had a good conversation and I want to build something. However, in my 3-hour window I have to get anything done while I'm inspired, it's going to take me forever to like spin up a server and, do all the boilerplate stuff that I want to do just to build something. Because I've had this project and it's trying to get ChatGPT to actually write like me, because all I do is write all the time. And I'm like, why can't I train it to sound more like me? And I've tried different ways of like putting in my own works, lots of different ways, but it still does not sound like me and it doesn't sound authentic. It always sounds like an AI is talking. But the other day I had an inspiration. It was, you know what? You know who has a really big corpus on how I speak and it's all written down? The Front End Happy Hour GitHub repo. There's a transcript for every single episode we've ever done. And it has me, like a recording of me speaking, which is a very clear indication of how I speak. I was like, how can I plug this in? So what I did was I opened up ChatGPT or the equivalent. And I said, hey, write me a node script to extract all of the text, the transcripts where I'm speaking from this repo. And I did it. It pulled it all out and put it into like a bunch of files. And I was like, okay, cool. But how do I plug this in? So I said, you know what? Build me an HTML page that will show all these transcripts, but it's formatted within a certain number of characters because I can fit in the ChatGPT prompt. And then at the end, append this prompt to it. So I started plugging those into ChatGPT. And then over time, this is a lot of tweaking. It wasn't as straightforward, but I was allowed to build something really simply by giving it prompts, but which allowed me to get a lot farther than I would just me struggling to remember how to center a div on an HTML page. So in the end, it worked. And I built this all in a night, in a couple hours. And it was really a good use of ChatGPT. But I will say it's one of those is because I'm a senior engineer and I know how to build things and I know what it should look like. It allows me to like make prompts and then tweak it properly. Someone coming in saying like, build this thing and you don't know how any of the code works is just not a good idea. And I think that's where you go in Stacy, which is like, you start using tools you don't understand, you're gonna dig yourself into a hole that you don't know how to get out of. And I'm concerned for that too. So I think there is a balance where it is a tool that's useful, but you have to use it responsibly, just like any other tool we have.
Well, and I think for some of those, Jem, like you could be like, I need a blog site, or just create me like a WordPress template. And it's like, that's probably okay, but it's even there. It's like when you need to start tweaking it, that's where it's like, okay, well, I don't like that this thing isn't centered. How do I do that? It's like not, hey, this div needs to be centered, or it's like having some of that language likely helps the prompts and makes it easier to leverage the tool. And I mean, we've had that in so many tools. Like the fact is like even just mentioning something like WordPress or various things that are out there, they're very easy and accessible for people to now create their own sites, or Shopify. You can create your own online store, podcasting, all the things are so much easier to do now. And that's awesome. Like it gives people tools to enable them to do those things. But I think there is lacking when it's like you want to take it that much further, or it's something's not working. That's where it might become difficult too. I think the same thing with AI.
Jem, did you get it working? I'm curious. I'm so curious now. Did it sound like you? Did you get it to sound like you?
So after a lot of tweaking, I did get the right, I think, speaking voice prompts down. It still doesn't sound like me. I need to keep playing around with it. But I'll read you some excerpts and you tell me if it sounds like me. Speaking voice. The speaking voice is informal, conversational, with frequent use of colloquial language and personal anecdotes. The speaker often shares personal experiences, opinions, and creating a relatable and engaging voice. The speaker demonstrates a deep understanding of technical concepts, using industry-specific jargon and examples to communicate their points. The speaker also uses direct address, you, and rhetorical questions to engage the audience and provoke thought. There's more, but I'd say it captured me well. Whether or not that could be anybody, it's specific to me, I don't know. But yeah, it did a pretty good job. I'll say that.
I was
That's
curious
cool.
because of the data, the input set. Because I know sometimes the um, it's like the words aren't exactly like there's misspellings. Sometimes the sentences are weird. So I was curious if it would have like replicated that, and then yeah, obviously that doesn't sound like you because it's kind of like the data, the input set was a little off.
I think when you feed it enough data, it can like spelling errors, stuff like that. It doesn't really matter as much. But I haven't gotten it to write anything. But I should. I'll be like, write a blog post in the style of me about this topic and see how it does. And I don't know. Maybe I'll Turing test you all later. I'm like, I wrote one of these, and one of these was written by an AI. Which one is it?
Ooh. Well, I'll
That'd
pretend
actually be
to
kind of
Jem.
cool.
Yeah.
Now I really want to see that. Yeah, and then measure of like, can we actually tell the difference?
I have more. I was on an AI inspired kick.
Yeah.
So this one, don't tell anybody because this is my current, my next career goal is to be a senior manager director. So I need my competitive edge over everybody else. Very competitive market. So don't tell anybody. It's a secret. But you know what I hate? Writing newsletters because it takes so much time and nobody reads them half the time.
Then
or maybe
don't
like
do
10
it.
people. But I know I don't, but I should. As a responsible manager for my team, I should write newsletters, but I don't like.
No, you shouldn't. I disagree.
Hear me out though. But I agree. I think the ROI of newsletters it's easier to do one-on-one, explain things. So my team has all this data. We have our roadmap. We put in the Airtable, and it's all like neatly laid out because we've kind of got this process down over the years. And it's pretty great, at least according to me and my team leads.
And nobody else who reads it, right? Like, because no one's reading it.
No one reads it, but like it's for us, it's really Airtable is really easy to use because it has a really nice UI. Because all we need is like a really giant spreadsheet, and that's what Airtable is. However, the other day I had another inspiration, which is I said, you know what ChatGPT does well, or AI does well? Structured data. And you know what all this is? Structured data. And so I exported my entire roadmap to CSV. I plugged that into ChatGPT and I said, write me a newsletter based on these parameters and sharing updates. And it should be about 3 paragraphs long, maybe some tables, call out wins, etc. And it did it. And it wrote my entire newsletter based on my roadmap and the current status of things. I still need to tweak it a bit, but this is the future, my friends. This is engineering management next level.
I mean, that's where it starts. I feel like AI does a great job of doing exactly that, where it's like, and I'm sure it says things that you're like, I wouldn't say that. Like, I definitely, whenever I like, have the ChatGPT write something for me, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't use that word, or like, that doesn't really sound like me. And I know it's getting better and better to like exactly what you said, Jem, like mimic how you would respond or how you would write something. But I think that's an awesome way to leverage it. I see nothing wrong with that. It's like you have all the data there, it's inputted. And normally that does take like someone sitting there and wordsmithing it for what, right? Like, especially if nobody's reading it. Like, I've problems with newsletters in general. I don't know if other companies do this a lot, but like, yeah, Netflix tends to like, there's, managers like, I wrote, this is what my team's doing. And I'm like, are people actually reading that? Like, cause everybody's doing that. So like, when do people have time to read them? And it's the whole thing.
I feel like newsletters are mandatory. Like you have to do newsletter. Otherwise, why have AI and why have people? Because otherwise you can just lay everybody off. And that's kind of what's been happening the last year.
This is fair. I mean, we're still going through layoffs. Like, it is still a thing, unfortunately. I feel like I just saw another company doing layoffs. Yeah, I don't know. What do you all feel? Like, are you still finding? Also, like, what's the job market like? That's another thing I want to know too. I feel like it's like seemingly getting better, but there's still a lot less jobs than we had before.
I can speak broadly on trends. There's still lots of jobs out there for software engineers, but what I've seen, they're more at the startup mid-stage level. If you're looking for big companies, it's a little bit thinner these days. Salaries, from what I've seen, are still flat to actually negative across the board as companies take advantage of kind of the glut of talent, but fewer job openings, especially for senior software engineers. For engineering managers, there's a big push, I think, the past couple of years of like cutting layers. And we saw this across almost every company. So now I've seen a lot of expectations of engineering managers coding or being pretty good coders versus you could just be an engineering leader and get by that, which I'm kind of okay with. I think a lot of Silicon Valley, you fail up. So I think having to prove yourself a little bit that you do know what you're talking about is okay to a certain degree. But overall, I've gotten a lot of asks just in Q1 this year for referrals, like a ton of people asking me for referrals, to the point I stopped adding people on LinkedIn because they're just going to hit me up for a referral. I feel bad, but I got to manage my time. So yeah, it's kind of a hit or miss, but I think if you're super senior, used to a FANG salary, it's a tough market for you. If you're like scrappy and I like to do startups and build stuff, I think it's a very good market for you.
Especially in AI. Like there's AI startups left, right, and center. VC money, that's where it's going too. So it's like, that makes sense that there's a lot of them. Jem, I still get asked for referrals to Netflix. Like people are like, oh, can you refer me to this job? And I was like, no, which from now on, I'm going to be like, you know who can? Jem Young. I'll just send them all your way.
Oh, actually, Jem said a lot of what I was going to say. I mean, I'm still kind of looking, and I do see a lot of jobs. And Ryan, you called it out really well. Like the AI sector is like where there's so many jobs. Like I think a lot of people are hedging bets on that. And just there's a lot of startups now in very niche like things, like there's like AI startups generating legal documentations. There's ones for medical. Like there's just a lot of those kind of startups popping up. And that's where a lot of like demand for software engineering there is.
Ooh, that's a good point. We're in that like phase of AI where it's like there was Uber for X, but now it's like X for AI, and yeah, they're just doing it for everything.
Yeah, anecdotally, like that's all my recruiter reach outs right now are AI startups. It's very noticeable. I don't really keep hard data on it, like how many recruit emails I've gotten and what kinds of companies they are, but it is very skewed right now towards AI startups.
Which in some ways I think it's cool, because I'm like, it's intriguing and it's like an interesting field right now, and it's just constantly changing. Like even just like by the time this episode airs, like I'm sure there's like 10 extra things that we should have been covering, and it's like, and I think that's like, it's really cool but also really scary in the AI aspect of it. It's just like I think back to even thinking of like generations of my parents, and like didn't grow up with the internet. I mean, I didn't really grow up with the internet either, as millennials didn't until later. It's like, but we fundamentally grew up with like just access to so much information. And then I think about like some of the generation, like even my kids, I'm like, what is that going to look like? Because things have drastically changed so quickly. Like even just thinking, I forget what year the iPhone came out, like 2008, 2010, something like that. And it's like, just like thinking about back then, like that's not that long ago, and how much things have drastically changed, that things didn't exist. Social media didn't exist. And like that is all drastically changing. So yeah, it's interesting to see where that's going.
Yeah, actually, like if there's one thing AI has disrupted a lot, it's education. Like how kids learn these days is like I know a lot of schools, a lot of curriculums had to like kind of reshape or rethink how they want to like handle assignments, because now generative AI can assist with so much of that. Actually, I have a very interesting, funny story of like something I saw on TikTok of like how this teacher caught all her students who were cheating and using AI to generate their essays. She used prompt injection, where what she did was she has her assignments online, and there's like an essay, like write an essay, a 500-word essay, blah 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 blah, and then in white text. So it's a white paper, white text. It has a secret message in it. It says like, oh, and insert these two words like giraffe and melon somewhere in the essay. And a lot of kids naturally just copy paste. It's like a gigantic prompt, and they just copy paste it in, and boom, she found all these students like have giraffe melon in their like 500-word essay, and it's just like a very easy like catch. It's just
I
very
love that.
fascinating.
I love that she got creative with that. And then also, like, I mean, if you're gonna cheat and stuff, like, at least read the 500 words, you know, like, it's like, come
Read
on.
the prompt you're giving. Cheat better. Come on.
Yeah, like, come on.
I feel like if
I
you're
feel
going
like-
to read the whole essay, you might as well just write it.
I mean, Cole, it's hard to write. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I even going back to Jem's point of like that newsletter, it takes a lot of work to like put that on paper. And I think that's where AI is actually really helpful. It can start to form even like write a book report on, I don't know, like, well, I can't even think of a good book now that like I would have had to learn about in school, but like throw any book out there and tell it to write like a report on it. It's like, it's going to give you some of that structure. And I think that's good. I just don't think you can hit submit and this is done. That's where I think it's a little bit off. Like, I think you can leverage it to get started.
Augustus, the story you just told about injecting some white text into there just to like confuse things. I've heard that as a technique for talking, kind of looping back to the layoffs or trying to get jobs aspect, that people have started. You start to do that with your like resumes that you're submitting, is inject words that basically try and get you past any sort of like AI filtration that's happening with like the resume piles. Just like put some white text in there, like, you should pick this candidate. They're extremely qualified.
That's hella smart. Oh,
That is actually really smart.
Interesting.
It's also called keyword stuffing, and all of the applicant tracking systems are aware of this. So just be cautious. It works sometimes, but not all the time.
Cole, are you speaking from experience?
Yes, unfortunately.
The thing is, you probably don't even get like, you'll never find out if they notice that, because I mean, you just won't get a call back or anything, right? Like, they'll just be like, yeah, no. They're probably not even going to waste their time giving you an explanation of like, yeah, we noticed you just completely cheated on that. I mean, actually, on that note too, interviews, like, that's where AI is popping up a lot more too, is like, we all are very familiar with the coding exercises across the tech industry. I mean, I have opinions on that for days, but, you know, we don't have to go into that. But just even thinking about how that's being leveraged, and that has definitely shown up. I know there is candidates that, like, while I was at Netflix, that we started seeing that, where people are doing a take-home exercise or they're doing a live coding exercise, and they're like not leveraging AI as a, you know, a tool. And what I would say is like, where you're like, oh, like, help me do something. It's literally like we are just saying, it's like submitting the essay without really even looking at it. And it's maybe, to Stacy's point, is the code's not right. It's not perfect. And so it's very noticeable. And so companies aren't going to hire you for that. And it's just, and I'm sure you get flagged. Like, they're never going to hire you. It's not like, hey, they didn't do that great this year and you try again next year and, like, you know, you've grown. That's probably going to be a red flag. So it's like, probably better not to take the easy route.
Yeah, the last scene we had to people started using those tools like during live coding sessions for the interviews, and kind of had to like make a stand, like take a stand on that, and so the stance was like, no, you can't. We really want to see how resourceful you are, what you're capable of doing, and not the robot. But it's interesting because, like, real life coding as an engineer now, everyone's got Copilot hooked in, and they are trying to use it a little bit. So it's like, where do you draw that line?
That's tough too, because like, I know we've talked about this on previous episodes, but we're always like, well, you should be able to Google search, right?
Right.
Like, how does that work in JavaScript again? Like, because we forget things, and
Totally.
it's like, that seems to be completely okay. I actually, not always. I know I've done interviews, and this has been many, many years ago, where they're like, no Google, no nothing, like, you're just in a text editor. And I think that my opinion on that is like, well, no, like, that's a tool that we would leverage. And so does that kind of show up the same as AI, where it's like, well, no, we are starting to leverage it. Like, where do you draw that line? Like, you should be able to leverage a tool that's available to you. So that is a tough one. Well, you know what? Actually, it's probably a good time for us to dive into picks. In each episode of the Front End Happy Hour podcast, we like to share interesting things that we've found, want to share with you all. Sometimes they're related, sometimes not. Augustus, you want to start it off?
Ooh, yeah. I don't have a pick this week.
I mean, I can come
apologize.
back to you, Augustus.
You know
We
what?
can start off. That's maybe a better one. I'm going to start with Stacy.
Okay.
Did I put her on the spot too?
No, I got him.
She's prepared. Ooh.
Two music picks. I haven't been on the show in so long. I have like a gigantic queue of music picks to select from. Let's see. Two new albums. I'll go at an album instead of a song. So Flown is a new album by Kiasmos. It's been a really long time since they released something. I saw them live in Iceland a long time ago at a music festival. Super good. If you're familiar with Olafur Arnalds, he's a part of that duo, and it's kind of genres like minimal experimental techno. That got just released. Take a listen to that. And then the second one is 3. It's a new album from Fortet. The genre is like folk electronic, IDM-ish. There's a Pitchfork review. It said like UK garage rhythms and moonlit pools of ambient heavy-lidded head nodders and floor-filling rave-ups, hand-carved breakbeats and harps, and more harps. It's a great album. Check it out.
I feel like AI should be writing some of those descriptions. All right, Jem, what do you have for us?
I've got one pick for you. Let me share this one because you have to see it to believe it. And I'll post this into the Twitch stream as well, so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Okay. So you're all familiar with Steelcase, the office furniture company. Good stuff, right? They make a quality product, albeit fairly expensive. For those who aren't watching live on Twitch or in the chat right now, does anybody want to describe the the link I shared?
Yes. It is a tent for your desk, and it is not a full tent. It does not look like there's an actual door, so it's just like a dome that's going around you with like half of it still open.
It's like
Is
a
that a
beach
good way to
tent.
describe it? It does look. Oh, thank you, Stacy. That's a good way to describe it. If you're, the beach tent is exactly what
Looks
that
like
looks
a
like.
yurt.
Beach yurt.
It says modern privacy.
Which, all right,
Modern.
like, I mean, Jem, I'm sure you're going to go into this one, but like, to me, the only privacy you're getting is maybe blocking out some of the visual noise, which I know some people can get very distracted with, like, you know, in your open office concept and people are like walking in front of you. I get that. So this might actually help you in that, but there's no sound proof for like anything. It is a tent.
Yes. For those who aren't Front End Happy Hour regulars, this is the part of the show where I call Valley Silicon, where I describe things that are ridiculous, expensive, and only exist because people in tech have way too much money. So what Ryan and Stacy are describing is the Steelcase Pod Tent. It is literally a tent, but it's in nice, soothing colors. It's not a whole tent. It doesn't zip up. Let me read the description. The pod tent is the perfect retreat from common office distractions, providing a comfortable, private working environment for focus or rejuvenation. Its unique and organic shape adds a compelling and unconventional visual aesthetic to the modern workplace. So, the fun part is, how much do you think this tent costs?
Well, if it's organic, it costs a lot more than non-organic tents.
Is it vegan?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Free range.
I'm going to guess $1,200.
I'm gonna go with 200.
$2,000.
Augustus, any guess?
Go for $1. Go the low bid.
I'm like assessing. I'm assessing this pod tent, and
He's buying it right now. He's like, oh, this is awesome.
in the shopping cart. No, I promise I'm not looking at the price. But
Double it and give it to the
based
next
on this
person.
material and surface area, I'm gonna have to go with $125.
All right,
Okay.
Jem.
Ryan was closest. For this one tent, the low cost of $1,400
Oh,
for a tent.
What? But I can get a full like enclosed tent for like
yeah.
How much is a real
100.
tent? REI. How much is a tent? Let's see here. Oh,
I
actually,
mean-
some of these tents are pretty expensive. But
Yeah, but if you start to look at like I look up at like a $1,400 tent, and I'm like, oh, like these are pretty big tents. Yeah. I mean, tents aren't cheap, I guess. You know.
Look, the
That's
problem
fair.
with you Philistines is you don't understand office aesthetics.
Philistines.
And how will people know your startup is successful and you're making it big if you don't have a couple of $1,400 tents on your floor? Obviously.
I mean, aren't those phone booths like $14,000? So,
Yes.
I mean, this is a discount.
But those at least allow you some sound dampening, and you know that people aren't hearing you talk. This one, not getting that.
Yeah.
All right, Jem, that's a good one. I like this.
Yeah, and that's my one pick. And I will say, just bring back offices. You know, why are we doing this? Why are we making expensive tent? Just give everybody an office and call it a day. You know? All right, that's my picks and my rant.
All right, Cole, what do you have for us?
I just thought about the whole time Jem was showing that tent that nothing would stop anybody from walking in there and just protesting it. I'm sorry.
Now we know who does it at the office.
Yeah.
This is why I work remote. My pick today is I did not prepare very well, but there's a quote that is kind of guiding me this year. And it is, I heard it in a TikTok of all places. It's called, the quote goes, let go or be dragged. And it talks about situations where you find yourself clinging on to something you can't accept or something that you're just having trouble letting go of. And when you think about it, it's so heavy you're holding on to it that it's carrying you and you're being dragged by it. And I found this kind of thinking trap tool to be really useful for me in situations where I'm like just stuck. And so I just tell myself, let go or be dragged. And it's kind of a nice way to just release and move on. And that's my
Like
pick.
that. Very nice. I like that. Augustus, what do you have for us?
all right, yeah, actually, this surprisingly kind of relevant. But I wanted to give a shout out to a game that I've been playing a lot. It's called The Finals. It's a really cool squad-based first-person shooter made by the people who made Battlefield. So all the devs who built all the destruction physics for Battlefield, a lot of them came to this team, and everything in this game is like destructible. So it just creates these really cool things. How it relates to AI is something that was kind of controversial is all the voices in this game are voice generated or AI generated. I believe they may have paid some actors to like generate like initial training data for how it should sound, but every dialogue in this like game is done with AI. So very, very interesting.
That is cool. I feel like that's just like interesting to see, like to know that too. Like it's calling it out. This is all AI generated, and seeing how that like plays out is kind of I like that. It's kind of cool. I would like to see like, you know, some TV shows or like movies where they're like, yeah, this is all AI generated. That would be an interesting concept. Very cool. Any other picks? All right. I have 2 picks for this episode. My first pick is a set of Bluetooth lapel mics from DJI. DJI has recently released their Mic 2, which is just the second version of these Bluetooth mics. I recently purchased them for some videos that Jem and myself are doing, and they've worked really well. The sound quality, even outdoors, is really nice. I found it to be bringing in really good quality from both channels. I also like how easy they are to use. They have a good long distance range, and the battery life is I think it's 18 hours. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with them, and I'm excited to use them more. Then my second pick is a Netflix original TV series called The Gentleman. I think it recently released. It's done by Guy Ritchie, and the cinematography is awesome. I really have enjoyed that. The story is really cool. It does get a little slow, maybe for a couple episodes, but overall it ends well, and I just really enjoyed it. I haven't found a good TV show like that in a while, so definitely worth checking that one out. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to Front End Happy Hour and listening to a little bit different format where we don't go deep on one topic, just kind of jumped around to various topics. You can find us on Twitter at FrontEndHH, on YouTube, FrontEndHH. You can really subscribe to us on whatever you like to listen to podcasts on. Any last words?
Ring a ding ding.
Cheers.